So fonts are one of those things we usually just throw into a project, but they can actually slow down your website a lot. But after this video, you won't be having that issue anymore because Astro just introduced a new fonts API that fixes performance issues, privacy, and even makes fonts easier to use. So in this video, I'll show you how it works and how it's actually a big deal. So let's dive right into the video. So I have a landing page right here, and the font I'm using is coming directly from Google Fonts. And like I said, this is what we normally use. I think these days, if you use Astro now, you can use font source. 80% of developers still uses fonts from Google Fonts. And when you use fonts like Google Fonts on your website, your users are downloading those fonts from a third-party server. So in this case, Google. And what that means is that it will lead to slower load times, especially if they don't have a good network. The second one is the privacy issues because your user's IP will be exposed as well. And also, the performance won't be consistent anymore. But what this Astro Fonts API does is that it downloads and saves the fonts from your own site directly, not from a third-party service. And it automatically optimizes them and then gives you a clean API to manage everything. So I will be working with the docs because, like I said, currently if I go to my code, I'm still using the one from Google. So we'll be replacing it in a bit. So following the docs, I will leave a link to this in the description so you can go through it yourself as well because I will just be combing through. So on the eye level, the entire configuration is done on your astro.config file. So if I go to my astro.config file, this is where everything is being done. And just for context, depending on where you're watching the video, I'm currently using Astro, the latest version of Astro, which is Astro 6.1. So just keep that in mind in case if you're using a lower version. So this is what we'll be doing the configuration. And if we go back, you would see, I don't want to skim through this, but basically you see that Astro provides built-in support for the most popular font providers such as Adobe, Bunny, Fontshare, FontSource, Google Icons, and NPM. And you can also use your own local font files. So you can also download a font on your own local PC and use it directly from there. So the first guide is for you using a local font. I won't go through this, but the other step is basically the same step. It's just that you are just referencing directly from a file on your folder, whatever your folder is. So it's fairly straightforward. But I'll just move on to the second one right here because this is the one that mostly concerns us. So again, the first one is using a local font file, then the other one is using like a provider, just as you saw here. So in order to do that, you go to your astro.config.mgs file, then you bring in these fonts right here. So this font option, so I'll come here and I'll just say fonts like so. Then I think it's curly bracket, so say square bracket and do it like so. Then now the comma here. Then inside here now you can now pass in different properties. So the first one is the provider. So the provider, I think it requests 3 properties by default. So you also need to bring in these font providers. So we need to import this as well. So we say font providers from astro.config. Then if I hit dot, we get like a autocomplete, so it's type safe as well. So you can pick from Google or anyone. So I'll just do font source like so. Then also need 2 more properties as well. So we need the name. So in this context now, I don't want to use a different one. I'm using pre-college, so I will just go to my global.css file. This is it, but I think I'll have to give it a you know what, I'll just copy the name like this, and here I will just say college like so. Then you will need the CSS variable. So this is what we would pass on the fonts components when we want to use it. So for the CSS variable, I will just copy like so, and I'll call this one font. Then I will just say Brie College. I don't want to add Ukraine text, so just like this. And I'll save. And you can also pass in more objects or properties as well. So for now, we'll leave it like so. So if we go back to the docs, we can now see that our font is now configured and ready to be added to our page. So before I do that, I just want to get rid of, if I go to the layout file, I just want to get rid of this one that we have here. So copy everything here, get rid of it. Then also, if I don't think it's going to even render, it's going to just use the fallback one. Yeah, so it's using sans serif so far. So next thing now we need to do is to apply the font. So to do that, this is for the custom one, but I'm using Tailwind, so the approach is different. So if you're using the custom font, a custom font directly, and you are using just plain CSS, you just have to pass in the font components like so. You know what, let me just do that here. So I'll copy it like so, and I'll paste it here, and then we can now replace it here as well. So in this context, I'll paste it here, and the name we called it was font Brie College. So ensure the name matches. So if we go back to our Astro MGS file, you see that it's the same. So I'll save it. Then I'll go back. Before I go back, remember I'm still using it here. But if I check back, it's not going to work yet because we've not completed all the steps. So if you're not using Tailwind, you can just directly use it directly on your style tag. But if you're using Tailwind, you can just come right here, and I'm using Tailwind version 4. So on our globals.css file, so say globals.css, in terms of all these now, I will say this should be var, then I'll pass the font, so say font Brie College like so. So if we check back now and see, we are not getting the Brie College font back. How cool is that? And it's very, very straightforward as well. So if we go back to the documentation, we skipped a part, and you can see that we can also, with the font API, you can also preload fonts. So to do that, you just have to pass in the preload flag right here. So you can just say yeah, you can just say preload like so, and save. So if I go back right here, the font now is not going to take long because I think it's now cached. So if I even do a hard refresh, you can see that the font is still loading there. It doesn't flicker anymore. And also it says to preload the font, pass the preload property, which is what we've done, to the corresponding font component. And it said if multiple files correspond to a font, you can also specify which one to preload by passing an array. So what this means is that if you have different layout file, you can also pass different files. So by default, you can say, okay, you want this landing page to only preload the font width of something like, so I can just say, I think it's square curly bracket, then square bracket, and I can just say width should be 400 like so, and save. So if we refresh, it's going to preload the weight of 400. So you can also pass in more weight as well, but I'll just leave it as the preload. so that it's just going to preload everything. So the last thing I want to talk about is you can customize fallback fonts. So fallback fonts are used when the primary font has not yet loaded. So fallback fonts are used when the primary font has not yet loaded, contains missing character, or cannot be loaded for any reason, which in this case will rarely happen, except maybe you make like a change to, yeah, where it's being used, your class or something. But they giving us the option to define our own custom fallbacks. And in this case, let me just show you what I mean. You rarely do it because if you read what it says here, said to avoid this, Astro automatically tries to generate optimized fallback font from the last defined fallback if it is a generic font family. So basically, it uses sans serif by default, but it may not match the desired appearance of your primary font. You can adjust it in your font configuration. So for these, personally for me, I would just leave it as it is, because if I, for instance, get rid of this now, maybe I don't have it at the font. So you would think it's going to fall back to sans serif. As you can see, it didn't fall back to sans serif. It fell back to, I think it's UI sans, based on the original font family. So you can see it's using UI sans serif, not just the sans serif, which is not bad in my opinion. And I guess even if I bring this back, you can also come here and just say you want the fallbacks to be something like sans serif, or you can add others. So if sans serif is not there, you can add something like monospace. So if the fallback, so if this doesn't work, it's going to go to a default one that this is based on. So in my case, it was that UI sans. So if that is not available, then it's going to fall back to sans serif or monospace. And also, if you don't add this, it's still going to fall back to sans serif. Alright guys, so that's the size of the video. If you're using Astro, this is definitely something you should start using in your project. And also, if you like this landing page that you're seeing and you want it for your own business or for a client project, you can just head over to webcreative.com/templates. The link will be in the description and you can just purchase one. If you found the video helpful, do well to leave a like, share and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.